All right, let's jump right in. We're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most important numbers in personal finance, and what we find might just change how you see your own budget. So, you've probably seen the headlines, right? The official number for June 2025 comes out, and there it is. Annual inflation was 3.0%. It's just one simple number. Sounds pretty manageable, doesn't it? But hang on a second. We really have to ask, does that 3.0% actually feel like your life? Does it match what's happening in your bank account week to week? For so many people, the answer is a hard no, not even close. And that brings us to our first big point. That headline number you see everywhere, it can be seriously misleading. So let's break down why leaning on these big, broad averages can actually be a risk to your financial health.
The thing about averages is that they smooth everything out. They take millions of totally different experiences, millions of different budgets, and just blend them all together into one single tidy number. But your financial reality isn't average. It's yours. It's unique.
So how does this actually look in the real world? Well, it creates what we're calling a tale of two budgets. It shows just how dramatically different people can experience the very same economy.
To see what's really going on, economists use a tool called expenditure deciles. Now, it sounds a little technical, but the idea is actually super simple. They just group all households into 10 different buckets, or brackets, based on how much they spend in a year, from the very lowest spenders to the absolute highest.
And the gap between these groups, wow. It is staggering. The lowest spending households, that's decile 1, are getting by on up to about 36,000 South African Rand a year. Now, compare that to the top group, decile 10. They're spending over 300,000 Rand. They are living in completely different financial worlds.
And this is the core of it all, the big reveal.
For those lowest spending households, their real-world inflation was 4.7%. At the exact same time for the highest spending households, it was just 2.9%. That isn't a small gap, folks. That is a massive difference in the actual day-to-day cost of just living. So why? Why on earth is there such a huge gap? Well, that takes us to our next section, the essentials squeeze. The entire answer is hiding in what people are actually spending their money on. The reason for that gap really comes down to this. For lower income households, their budgets are almost completely dominated by the non-negotiables. We're talking about food, electricity, transport to get to work. These things take up a gigantic slice of their financial pie, leaving almost no wiggle room at all.
And hey, what do you know? The very things that are pushing up the national average inflation rate are those exact same essentials: food, housing, and especially electricity and fuel costs. They're the biggest culprits.
Let's get specific. Food and non-alcoholic drink prices, they jumped 5.1% over the last year. This isn't some luxury you can just cut back on, right? This is a cost that hits you every single day, and it hurts the most when your budget is already stretched thin.
And then there's this monster. Electricity and other fuels went up by a breathtaking 11.3%. Again, keeping the lights on isn't a choice. When a fundamental cost like this skyrockets, it creates unbelievable pressure. So here it is, the crucial takeaway. It's a simple but pretty brutal formula. The bigger the chunk of your budget that goes to essentials like food and power, the higher your personal, real-world inflation rate is going to be. It doesn't matter what the headline number says.
Okay, so what can we actually do with this information? This is where we move from just understanding the problem to actually taking action. It's time to talk about knowing your real numbers. There's this fantastic quote that just sums it all up perfectly. Averages are for headlines, personal numbers are for making decisions. The news gives us headlines, but you don't make financial decisions based on a headline, right? To manage your own life, the only numbers that matter are your own. And this way of thinking goes way beyond just inflation. It's a whole mindset. It starts with knowing your personal inflation rate, so you can figure out what a pay raise is really worth. That helps you understand your personal tax rate, the actual amount that affects your take-home pay. And both of those things are absolutely critical to figuring out your personal retirement goal.
A number based on your life, not some generic formula.
And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. That 3.0% number we started with, it's basically just noise. The real question, the one you should walk away with, is this. Do you know the numbers that are really shaping your life? Because those are the only ones that truly matter.